Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin were the highlight of the early stages of the season this year. His third-place finish at the season opener in Bahrain, just his second podium in 7 years, was beyond incredible. No one saw it coming, and you couldn't help but be happy for him and the team. That incredible form continued up until the Silverstone Grand Prix, and in the last 2 races, Aston Martin had been completely off the pace. So what is going on at the Silverstone-based team? Why, all of a sudden, are they unable to challenge for podium places? Well, why don't you stick around and find out? So, yeah, Aston Martin, what is happening there? No one's expecting much from Lance Stroll, as he's been consistently outclassed by his 2-time world champion teammate, but for Alonso, the last 2 races have been really quiet. Prior to the British Grand Prix, he had stood on the podium 6 times, which was more than Sergio Perez at that point. He still holds 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship, but by such a slim margin that Lewis Hamilton will be expected to take that position after the race in Belgium this weekend. At Silverstone, nothing was really expected of Aston Martin. The track really wasn't suited to them, but at a low-speed circuit like the Hungaroring, the AMR23 should really have performed well. Fernando Alonso says Aston Martin's 9th and 10th place finishes in the Hungarian Grand Prix reflected their performance level accurately. Having started 8th, Alonso dropped 1 place during the race to cross the line in 9th, just under 5 seconds behind Carlos Sainz Jr.'s Ferrari. His teammate Lance Stroll was 1 place behind him in 10th, the last car to be lapped by race winner Max Verstappen. "I think we were not quick enough to challenge anyone in front, and we didn't have any threats behind," Alonso told the media after the race. So 3 points, 9th and 10th, was the maximum today. Only 5 teams scored points in the race, all of which had both their cars in the top 10 positions. Aston Martin were the last of the 5-point scoring teams, which Alonso believes was a fair verdict on their performance. Today, 9th is probably our pace, so behind the Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari and McLaren, which is more or less what we saw in qualifying and what we saw in the race, he said. Aston Martin also thought they would perform better at the Hungaroring before the weekend began, Alonso admitted. "In Silverstone, we did expect to struggle a little bit, but in Budapest, we thought we would be a little bit stronger. It was not the case, so we'll try to analyse and get back stronger in Spa next week." Due to the high-speed nature of the Belgian circuit, it seems highly unlikely that Aston Martin will be able to improve without some big changes to their car. The last month has seen the order towards the front of the field shift, with McLaren jumping from the midfield to become podium contenders. Alonso says Aston Martin need to respond in the car development race to match their rivals who have made steps forward in recent rounds. "Every race we would love to understand, and we all have many questions, but we never know exactly what is the cause of it," he said. In Austria, Hülkenberg and Haas were 4th in qualifying, so we were all surprised. In Silverstone, Williams were very fast. We were all surprised. Here, Alfa Romeo was very fast. We were all surprised. But then in the race, normally everything balances out and the big teams finish in front. We're just in the back end of those top teams, so we need to get back to the front end of that group. Aston Martin has been bringing upgrades to their car. In Canada, they had new side pods and a new floor. They added to those in Austria as well, but their pace has gone off a cliff in the last 2 races, and they look nowhere near a podium or even a top 5. So what has happened? Well, one big change that happened in Silverstone may be the culprit. The British Grand Prix saw Pirelli debut a new specification of tyre, which the manufacturers say is more resistant to fatigue, bringing forward a planned material change for 2024, with the speed of the cars having increased at a faster rate than anticipated. The pace improvement from the cars compared to last year, by more than a second per lap at several circuits so far this season, has put more pressure on the tyres, meaning they're put under more stress, and the drivers have to manage more wear as the race progresses. Talking about the motivation for the change, Pirelli's head of car racing and F1 Mario Izzola said, "The new specification contains materials that we have already developed for 2024, which will make the tyres more resistant without affecting any of the other technical parameters or the behaviour on track." While the general consensus in the paddock was that the change didn't make much difference to the pecking order, Alonso is convinced that it has had an impact. Before the race in Hungary, he said, "We are 1/10 from McLaren, so it's not as bad as maybe the result looks," he said. "But yeah, we need to improve. There's no doubt we made a step backwards in the last few races, and everyone did a step forward. Also, it is a coincidence that when the new Pirelli tyres came in Silverstone, there are a couple of teams that were struggling more, and a couple of teams that are very happy with the car now. One of Aston Martin's strengths before the new tyre was introduced was its ability to look after its tyres. They were also very good at getting their tyres up to temperature. Something about the more resistant tyre has meant that Aston Martin just aren't able to extract the same lap time from their car that they could do on the older tyres. Perhaps they're struggling to get the more resistant tyre up to temperature, causing them to slip and wear more. Perhaps they're finding it harder to control the temperature, meaning they need to begin tyre management sooner than the other teams. Without the actual data the team receives, it's impossible to tell, but a mechanic of the new tyre is having an effect on the AMR23. Fernando thinks another team is being affected as well though. It's not only us. I think Red Bull has clearly been hit with those tyres. They've been 1-2 in every qualifying, 1-2 in every race, and now they're not even on pole position. Checo is struggling to be in the top 10. At Silverstone, I think Max was only 3 seconds in front of Lando. So I see things a little bit abnormal since Silverstone. The field has started to close up a little in recent races. Max finished 33 seconds ahead of second place Lando Norris at the Hungaroring, but in qualifying he was beaten by a wonder lap from Lewis Hamilton, and Lando was only 0.3 seconds behind in third. During the first stint of the race, the McLaren of Oscar Piastri managed to keep pace with Max, but as the fuel burnt off in his RB19, he started to grow the gap and had the time to do a pit stop for fastest lap if it wasn't already his. Asked if his thoughts on the tyres were motivated by the stopwatch or his feelings in the car, Fernando Alonso said, "Both. I think you can feel the car a little bit different with the tyres. But as I said, it is difficult to sometimes to be neutral. Obviously, we didn't improve the car much compared to the main competitors. We have every Thursday now the new parts for every team, so it's very easy now to see which teams are bringing more and more parts to the Grand Prix. But if I look back to Red Bull after being first and second in every practice, qualifying and race, and now I think this weekend in none of the practice. In Silverstone, he was only 3 seconds in front of Lando. I think Red Bull lost performance since Silverstone, that's a fact." Aston Martin currently sits third in the constructors' standing, 22 points behind Mercedes in second, and 24 ahead of Ferrari in fourth. Ferrari's erratic performance has meant they haven't been able to capitalise on Lance Stroll's poor points haul, but that could change if Ferrari can finally sort themselves out. Yet Alonso is adamant that his team are not looking over their shoulder. "Trying to finish second is the goal, but it's going to be tough all the way to the end," he said. "We'll see how we finish this championship, but we can't forget that there are several very fast teams and drivers behind us. Ferrari and McLaren are going to come up or have already started to. But we're looking ahead. We're looking at Mercedes because that's the right attitude to have, to continue to protect our lead cushion in terms of points over our pursuers. For now, Aston Martin doesn't have the driver lineup to really challenge Mercedes, unless Alonso can put the whole team on his back for the rest of the season. The most important thing for Aston Martin at the moment is to find some lap time in their upcoming upgrades, because they've been losing out relative to their competitors in recent races. Do you think Aston Martin can turn around their declining form? Can Alonso carry them to a second place finish in the Constructors' Championship? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.